Okay, today is Big Serious Day. We're covering two sections in one day because they are so similar. So there's only one small difference in between the two sections, so we're going to do them both in the same day. That does not mean that you get to rest. It is a serious day. So a big, huge day as far as your future is concerned. So remember I told you we needed to write this every time so we would remember it. Factoring 101, go ahead and write down and take out the GCF, count the number of terms, split them up into 4 terms, 3 terms, and 2 terms. 4 terms we talked about yesterday. 3 terms is what we're going to talk about today. Go ahead and make sure you have all of that written down, and then I'll tell you what to write underneath the 3 terms. Pause it. Okay, so over here, we got that all taken care of. We're not going to think about 4 terms today. Today we're going to concentrate on 3 terms. The first thing you need to do is ask what is the leading coefficient. In other words, what's the first number in the problem? The very first number in the problem. Sometimes the first number in the problem isn't written. In fact, today, usually it's not going to be written. So if the first term in the problem is a 1, that's when it's not written. If it starts out with a letter like x squared or y squared or k squared or t squared, then our leading coefficient is a 1 because there's an understood 1 in front of it. If there's a number in front of that x squared like 3x squared or 5x squared or 9x squared or 256x squared, then that's not 1. Today we're going to be talking about ones that are with a 1 in front. When you have a 1 in front, then what you're supposed to do is follow the rules. Now I know that you're saying that's not how you spell rules. They're my rules. I can spell them any way I want to spell them. That's how you spell them. So the question is, what are these rules? And I really would write these down underneath here. I know it's going to take up some paper, but I'd go ahead and get them on the exact same page. Then, after today, I would turn around and write them down on a Post-it so that you can have them to put on top of your homework and move it from page to page. Don't do that right now, but do it later after you go through this. Okay, so the rules. The rules are what make this section 7.3 and 7.4 easy. See, I told you it was spelled that way. Number 1. Two numbers. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm different from most people. So number 1 is to draw the skeleton. I'm different from most people. That's what number 1 is. Number 2. Two numbers that multiply to get the first term. Number 3. Two numbers that multiply to get the last term. And add or subtract to get the middle one, to get the middle number. They're a lot, but it's okay. Number 4 plus in the back means the signs are the same as the sign in the front. Number 5, a minus in the back means the signs are different and the largest number gets the sign in the front. That's not how you spell front. And then step number 6 is to check it. Just to make sure it's right. Should always check. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. But if you follow this, it'll work every single time, which is what we need. We need something that works every single time. So, let's look at some problems. Okay. And talk about what I mean by some of the things that I've said. First problem I'm going to look at, and I hope it'll fit up here, is y squared plus 14y plus 13. The first thing I want to do is draw the skeleton. What is a skeleton? Well, in your body, the skeleton is what holds you up. If you didn't have a skeleton, you'd just be a blob of flesh with no form. So the skeleton is kind of what gives you shape. It's the structure to your body. So this needs some structure to hold all the meat on. So my structure for these problems is always going to look like 2 sets of parentheses. That's the skeleton. So step 1 is to draw the skeleton. Step 2 is to find 2 numbers that multiply together to get the first term. My first term is y times y. Is y squared. So the only thing to multiply together to give you y squared is y times y. So I'm going to have to put my y's in the front. Y times y gives me y squared. That's pretty simple. Step 3 says 2 numbers that multiply to give you the last term and add or subtract to get the middle number. So I need 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 13. And in this case, they have to add, because there's a plus there, add to give me 14. What numbers multiply together to give you 13? Well, the only numbers that multiply together to give you 13 are 1 and 13. Do 1 and 13 add to give you 14? Yes, they do. So I put a 1 here and a 13 here. Now if you put your 13 here and your 1 here, that's okay for this problem. Doesn't matter which one goes where. Then I go on to the next step. It says a plus in the back means the signs are the same as the sign in the front. A plus in the back of your problem up here, like we have, means that the 2 signs down here are going to be the exact same as whatever's the sign of the front. Here our front is a plus. That means they're both going to be plus. A plus in the back tells you that these two signs are the same as that in the front. If we'd had a minus in the back, that means that these two signs would be different, and that the sign in the front would go to the larger number. But we don't have a minus in the back, so I don't have to worry about number 4. But for number 6, to check your answer, you do a distributive property. Go ahead and distribute it out. So y times y would be y squared. Y times 13 is 13y. 1 times y is 1y. 13y and 1y give you 14y. And then 1 times 13 is 13. The answer is always the stuff in the parentheses. A lot of times, people who do their multiplication and check their answer think that the last thing you write down is your answer. But the last thing you write down should be the problem when you check it to make sure it's right. So make sure you always box whatever has the parentheses around it, because that's the real answer. Okay, so I've kind of explained it. Let's do some. Practice, practice. Example number 2. R squared plus 6r plus 8. Okay, step 1 of the whole thing, gotta go back to the beginning, is there a GCF? No GCF, because no number here, and that doesn't have an R. Count the number of terms, 1, 2, 3. What's the leading coefficient? Leading coefficient is 1. That means I need to follow my rules. First step in following the rules, draw the skeleton. 2 things that multiply together to give you r squared. That's r and r. Rest and relaxation. 2 things that multiply together to give you 8 and add to give you 6. Okay, let's think about this. 2 things that multiply together to give you 8. Well, 2 times 4 is 8. Do they add to give you 6? 2 plus 4 is 6. So yes, 2 and 4 multiply together to give you 8, and they can add together to give you 6. And then a sign in the back is a plus, so that means that's a plus and that's a plus, because that one was a plus. Then you can check your answer. So when I go to check my answer, r times r is r squared, r times 4 is 4r, 2 times r is 2r, and 2 times 4 is 8. That gives me r squared plus 6r plus 8. Hey look, that's what we had. So this must be correct. Check your work. Another one. K squared minus 5k plus 4. Okay. Is there a GCF? No. How many terms? 3. What's the leading coefficient? 1. Draw my skeleton. 2 things that multiply together to give you k squared. K and K. 2 things that multiply together to give you 4, and in this case they have to add to give you 5. 4 and 1. Because 2 times 2 doesn't give you 4 when you add them together. I mean, doesn't give you 5 when you add them together, because 2 plus 2 won't work. So 2 times 2 might equal 4, but 2 plus 2 does not equal 5. We needed to equal 5 for this one. 4 times 1 equals 4, and 4 plus 1 equals 5. That's why 4 and 1 work. You could have put the 1 here and the 4 there. That would have been fine as long as it works out. A plus in the back means my signs are the same as the sign in the front. So in this case, it has to be a negative in both places. When I go to multiply it out, k times k is still k squared. K times negative 1 is negative k. Negative 4 times k is negative 4k. Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. So that gives me k squared minus 5k plus 4, which is what we had. So that worked. Let's try some more. Not doing too bad. Pretty simple as long as you follow the rules. Let's look at example 4. Z squared plus 8z minus 9. Is there a GCF? No. How many terms? 3 terms. What's the leading coefficient? 1, because there's no number in front, which means there's a 1 in front. That's why it's the leading coefficient. Okay, so we have to follow the rules. First step is to draw the skeleton. 2 things that multiply together to give you z squared, z times z. 2 things that multiply together to give you negative 9, and subtract, in this case, to give you 8. 2 things that multiply to give you 9, and subtract to give you 8. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. But when I subtract 3 times 3, I don't get 8. 9 times 1 is 9. When I subtract 9 and 1, I do get 8. So it must be 9 and 1. Okay? Then it says when there's a minus in the back, because we have a minus in the back this time, not a plus. When there's a minus in the back, it means the signs are different. So that means one of them's going to have to be plus and one of them's going to have to be minus. Okay? The largest number, that's my 9, gets the sign in the front. So my 9 must get the plus, which means my 1 must get the other one. So that's a minus. Now it doesn't look like this because that's what that looked like up there. Just because that's a plus and a minus doesn't mean this is always going to be a plus and a minus. I'll show you why in a second. If I multiply them out, z times z is still z squared. Z times negative 1 is negative 1z. 9 times z is positive 9z, and then 9 times negative 1 is negative 9. When I add these two together, I get my 8z. So I know that I did it right. But let's say that when I found my 9 and my 1, I put them in opposite places. Let's say I put the 1 here and the 9 here. That's okay. A minus in the back means the signs are different, and the largest number gets the sign in the front. My largest number is still 9. It's still going to get the plus. And that means the other one has to go here, so that has to be a minus. Which is exactly what you got before. It's just one parenthesis was before the other one. So in the last one we had z plus 9 times z minus 1. And in this one we have z minus 1 times z plus 9. It's going to give you the same answer either way because it's a commutative property. It doesn't matter which one comes first. So we're all okay. Let's try example 5. K squared minus 13k minus 30. No GCF, 3 terms, leading coefficients 1, follow the rules. Draw my skeleton. 2 things multiply together give you k squared, k and k. 2 things that multiply together to give you 30. Now there are some people who have issues with this whole multiply to give you one thing and add to give you another, and they want to sit there and list out all the different possibilities. If I were you, I wouldn't list out all the different possibilities. I would just list the one you're thinking about and not erase it. So numbers that multiply together give you 30. Well, 6 times 5 is 30. Do 6 minus 5 give you 13? No. So never mind, that one's not going to work. I didn't erase it. I just marked through it so I knew that it wasn't right. Well, what about other things that multiply together give you 30? 3 and 10 give you 30. Do they subtract to give you 13? No. They add to give you 13, that's true, but this time they have to subtract to give you 13. So it's not 3 and 10. Other things that multiply together to give you 30. 2 and 15? 2 and 15 multiply to give you 30. Do they subtract to give you 13? Yes. So I know it's 2 and 15. See, sometimes you gotta list them out. Otherwise you'll pick the wrong set. Now, sign in the back is a minus. That means that these are going to be different. And the largest number, that's my 15, gets the sign in the front. So it's negative 15 and positive 2. You can multiply it out and check it, but I know that it's right. So I'm going to skip that part. Number 6, w squared minus 8wz minus 48z squared. Wait a minute, what? We have two different variables going on. Okay. Is there a GCF? No. Because we don't have a z here and we don't have a w there. No GCF. How many terms? 3. What's the leading coefficient? Still a 1. So that means that I'm going to have to draw my skeleton. Two things that multiply together to give you w squared. It's w and w. Two things that multiply together to give you 48. And subtract to give you 8. Okay, some things that multiply together to give you 48. 6 times 8. They are not going to subtract to give me 8. Okay? Other things that multiply together give you 48. 4 times 12. 4 times 12 is 48. 4 from 12 does give me 8. So that's what I want to use. 4 and 12. Okay? Minus in the back means my signs are different. Keep the same sign in the front with the largest number, so it's minus 12 and plus 4. But there's a problem. This whole z squared thing in the back, that means I need to put a z here and a z there. That's the only difference between everything we've done and this. So since this needs z squares, we put them in. Just like we had w squares for the front, so we put a w in each. Each of them get a z in the back. Now when I multiply it out, w times w is w squared. W times negative 12 wz. 4z times w is positive 4 wz. And then 4z times negative 12 is negative 48 z squared. So that's w squared minus 8wz minus 48z squared, which is what makes the stuff in my parentheses my answer. Okay, 2 more I want you to try. And then we'll do classwork and homework. That's one of them. And that's the other one. Pause it so that you can do those. Okay. Up here. No GCF. Got to do your skeleton. Two things multiply together give you n squared is n and n. Two things multiply to give you 14 and add to give you 9. 7 and 2. Sign in the back is a plus, which means you both have the sign in the front. Okay, forget those rules. For this one, no GCF. Leading coefficient is 1. So I draw my skeleton. Two things that multiply together give you n squared is n and n. Two things that multiply to give you 48 and subtract to give you 2. 6 and 8. The sign in the back is a minus, so they're going to be different. The sign in the front goes with the largest number. So it's minus 8, which means it's going to be plus 6. So, classwork and homework. Classwork from page 280, practice exercises, numbers 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, 21. Then from page 284, practice exercises, numbers 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, and 21. Because we're doing 2 sections. Then for the homework, wrong color. I'll fit it in here. From page 280, practice exercises, numbers 3, 7, 11, 15, and 19. And then from page 284, practice exercises, numbers 3, 7, 11, 15, and 19. And that's it for today. You'll see me next week, I think. Bye.